Hello, everyone. This is a fascinating, spontaneous online discussion on parenthood in academia, organized by a group of alumni 2024. I will now introduce today's moderator, Camila Infantier, hello, and Amal, one of the organizers.
The Parents in Academia Group, an initiative of Lindau 24 alumni in collaboration with the Lindau Nobel Laureate meetings. Myself, Amal Abdul Rahman, an alumnus of 73rd Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting, which was held last year. I'm an astrophysicist, a school teacher, and a mother of two amazing kids. During my interaction with Nobel laureates and fellow participants during the Lindau meeting, it was quite interesting to notice the fact that every parent in academia had to undergo various challenges like me, even though they live in different parts of the world. That's when we had this idea of developing a platform to converse about the challenges and rewards of being a parent in academia. And we formed a WhatsApp group, which has about 60 plus Lindau 24 alumni. A lot of discussions happened among the group members, and Oksana Iarygina, a postdoctoral researcher from Sweden, she's also a panelist for this event, and myself started actively working on the idea of this panel discussion. We started these discussions in the last September, and it's my happiness shared with Oksana. Finally, this event is happening. This panel discussion is very much special and important because of the fact that we have mothers and fathers participating across different continents, and except Australia because of the time constraints. And also, we did a call for the panelists to the Lindau alumni community, and we could receive overwhelming responses, and we hope to accommodate all of them in our upcoming programs. It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce to the Lindau alumni, our moderator of this event, Camila Infantier, who is a gender and public policy researcher at the University of Sao Paulo. And she's also a member of Parent in Science movement based in Brazil. And I hope she would be letting you know about their PIS community also in her presentation. I cannot stop without thanking Christoph Schumacher, the Lindau alumni and community manager, who has been actively involved with us in organizing this event, and his team, who has been working tirelessly for the smooth organizing and technical conduct of this program. We are also thankful to the Council of Lindau Nobel Laureate meetings for giving us this great opportunity. With that, I welcome moderator Camila, all the panelists, and everyone who is attending from various parts of the globe. So over to you, Camila, and expecting a wonderful and fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amal, for the introduction. I hope everyone can hear me. I would like to thank you all for watching us from either YouTube or from being here with us in the Zoom. Thank you for coming. So it's such a pleasure for me to be the moderator of this fascinating conversation that we're about to have with mothers and fathers from many countries. We have a very special selection of academics here because from the list I'm going to introduce now, none of them is actually based in their country of origin. So although we have many universities represented, we have twice as many countries represented as we have people from different countries based in different universities in other countries. It's very interesting, especially for the topic we're about to discuss, because we know it's an aggravating factor for the difficulties of being a parent in academia when you lack this supporting network. And when you're away from your country, you definitely don't have as much support as you have in your home country. So with that, I would like to introduce first Natalie Fardian Melamed, which is based in the Columbia University in the USA, but she's originally from Jerusalem. We also have Mario Gonzalez Maldonado. He's from the National Institute of Standards and Technology in Colorado, USA, but originally from Mexico. We also have Oksana Iarygina, and she's from the Nordic Institute of Theoretical Physics in Stockholm University, but she's originally from Ukraine. And we have here Benjamin Lienhard, from the Walter Meissner Institute and Technical Institute of Munich, the University of Munich, but he's originally from Switzerland, not too far, that one. And then we have Chilufya Mwewa from the Deutsches Elektronensicherungszentrum in Germany. She's originally from Zambia. And we have Neha Wadehra from Cornell University, also in the USA, but she's originally from India. And then the last one, we have Elisabeth Wetzer from the Arctic University of Norway, but she's originally from Austria. So I didn't say the parenthood status, but Natalie is a mother of 4, Mario is a father of 1, Oksana a mother of 2, Benjamin a father of 2, Chilufya a mother of 2, Neha a mother of 1, and Elizabeth a mother of 1 too. So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being open here to discuss all your parenthood, like nice and difficult stories too. I hope you have a few to share tonight, this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're watching us from. So I'm gonna just give a little briefing of how the program is gonna be structured today, and then we also be able to follow throughout. I hope you can stay to the end of our event. So we'll start with a very quick presentation on my side. I'm gonna give you some theoretical perspectives on the topics of parenthood and in academia. And then we're going to go to each of our panelists for them to share very briefly their experiences in the moment and the moments they had, the parenthood, they had children in academia, how are they facing it, how they conciliate in that specific context. Then we're going to have a roundtable discussion with a few topics that we imagine them to be common, and we are going to see also the peculiarities of them in the different contexts. And then we're going to open for Q&A, so questions and answers from you guys. That we really welcome you to send your questions over the chat, and you can also send them in the YouTube channel. We'll manage to get them there as well. At the end, we're just going to have a wrap up round of comments as well with the panelists, and then we're just going to summarize a little bit the topics discussed here. So we encourage you to keep on sending your questions on our chat throughout the event. You don't need to wait for the question and answers moment, okay? So welcome everyone. I'm gonna start sharing my screen now. So if you want to talk to me, you probably have to actually talk and not write, because I won't be able to see this chat. So I'm Camila. Nice to meet you, everyone. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of São Paulo, but just like our panelists, I'm also based in another country. I'm currently in the University of Bath here in the UK doing a research visit. And so I'm here with both my children. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So we are here doing some collaborations, me and them as well. And so it's really interesting to actually participate in an event in this moment in my career too. I had my first child at the end of my master's degree, and I had my second one just in between master's and my PhD. This is what delayed me to get into the PhD program. So it's important to understand the moments in careers that we decide to have children. So this picture that introduced my presentation was from a researcher I interviewed during my master's. She was doing her postdoc in physics abroad, and she took her baby. And I think it's very symbolic to see the weight of a heavy book on basic relativity and a baby holding it, to see the kind of balance you are seeking when we decide to be parents and academics at the same time. So to start talking about parenthood, I think we should need to take a step back and talk about the science as an institution. So it is an institution that was built by men, for men, and then designed for the men to be part of it. So in the male science, as we call, we observe we actually live a hegemonic male model of making science. So this model has some very structural pillars, such as traditional gender norms prevailing, where women are perceived as primary caregivers, and careers hierarchy in the family. And then the dynamics within the family, they are reflected in the careers. So when you expect someone to actually look after some emergency with the children, you also always have the women leading in as opposed to men. So we have these kind of expectations. So pregnancies, they're expected to be postponed or even abdicated, especially in the early careers, even early moments of like, just a second. Okay, pause, 1 minute. Pause. Just a second, sorry. Oksana, can you take over for 1 minute? I'll be back.
Yes, sure. We can wait for you. Should we just wait for Camila? This is the reality of the parenthood in academia.
Okay, I'm back. I know it was very staged, right? So you understand the impact directly in women's careers, but let's go. So I was saying, like, the pregnancies, they actually mean an obstacle and a problem during like the career, like, especially the initial years of academic career. So there are this like not discussed and an unwritten rule that pregnancies should be postponed or sometimes even abdicated. And when you look like across generations, we see like more senior researchers from like a few decades ago will have the choice to make between either being a successful academic or a parent. We also have the expectation of total availability, these being throughout your career, like the linearity. So it can't take like a few months or maybe a year gap to maybe do some caregiving or to work on doing like a more flexible kind of work to look after maybe like a newborn or like a child with disability or elderly people. And also during our work routine. So maybe like during the week, if you need to do like part-time research, or when the children are on holidays and the university isn't. So this availability is just very difficult for women to meet the expectations of the academia. And this division between personal and professional spaces, that's absolutely not feasible when you have, like, especially in the context of pandemic, that we could see that our houses were invaded by the work we had to do, but our like domestic lives were already happening in the same place. So the academic work, a lot of the times it does happen like through home office. So it's just very difficult to actually hide one side from the other and not having this communication like constantly flowing. So within this context, this masculine structure, what are the women's path in academic science? So I'm going to talk about like a couple of phenomena that sometimes is perceived as like individual issue, but we know is actual structural problem for the women to retain and to participate in academic environment. So on the left hand side here, this is data from Scotland showing the leaky pipeline. So if you imagine you have a pipeline and like you have some like liquid, like water flowing through it, and you have some like droppings in each stage of them. So the result is at the end like a much like smaller amount of whatever like content was flowing. So if you think about the stages, we have the early years and primary school, where the ideas of like girls' jobs and boys' jobs start like being like disseminated between children. And when you go to the secondary school, this is very important data showing that 73% of women who graduate with STEM degrees leave the industry, and they cite casual sexism. But this is important for us to understand as parents now, that it starts during teenage years. And then in the workforce, women have a lot of issues like participating and then like progressing in STEM careers. So, and this happens in academia, but also happens in other sectors of the workforce, especially the ones that are more perceived as the masculine ones. And then you have the motherhood penalty, which is basically situations where, let's say, like in the private sector, if you have like bonus at the end of the year, and in the year that you took maternity leave, you might get paid less because the month you were out of your work, just like on maternity leave, they're not going to be considered. So you are penalized even financially for having a child. So where the fathers don't have like any sort of like impact in this sense, women's are penalized in different ways for actually taking pauses to have children, to look after their children. And then the return to work. So this is where we see the evasion rates happening. So it's just very difficult to go back to your old self or to be available as you used to be before having children. So on the right-hand side, I just saw numbers from the academic pipeline. So it's the same flow. We see that we are majority when we start like in undergrad courses, and as we go towards like the privilege or towards like a more senior levels in academia, we just start like evading slowly up to the point that we are minority when you get to the female researchers, which is the last bit. Another phenomenon that I think is probably, you guys are very familiar, is the scissors effect. So it's the scissors because we start here on the top, like in a higher representation than men, and then men start like a little less than half represented in undergrad courses. So you see here, women represent 55%, whereas men represent 45%. By the time you get to graduate education, women, although here, do increase in representation to 59%. When we go to the higher levels of like academic seniority, we start like falling down the numbers. So we go to 46%. And by the time we become like actually hired in the professorship or in the tenure track, like our representation go to 21% and 18%, whereas men, they start like much lower. They go all the way up to being overrepresented in this layers. So it's important to understand like what happens throughout this path. So you see the motherhood does appear as an influencing factor, but it's not the only one, but it is a major one. So that's why we start talking about like the issue of motherhood in academia. So these numbers here, we are comparing childless scientists of the same gender and parents in academia. So by the time a child is born, the productivity levels drop. They might pick up at some point, but they might just pick up gradually. So it's just very important to highlight, although like we're calling this event the parenthood in academia, the impact in motherhood is absolutely different than the impact in fathers of fatherhood in academia, as we may say. So this is just to justify the gender approach of the issues, rather than just like talking about probably like looking after the children, of the rights of the children. Here we are talking about the women, and then how we participate in science, how we like our issues, like in our demands as mothers in academia, are perceived and dealt with within the structures of the institutions. And then here I'll do a bit more specific moments that when we are like in academia of like conflicts that we have, and then that actually shape our experiences as academic mothers. So we start as a work-family conflicts. So you're never like enough in any of the spaces. So if you go to school, you're probably not the super present mother because you're the one that have to be late for meetings. You were just like not able to participate in school properly. And then at work, you're the one that can go a call from like a child with fever in school, and you can always like have to jump out to attend to family meetings or to family issues. And as that, we have like double burden as professional caregivers, professional and caregivers. So we work many more hours than men, if you consider like the reproductive work we do. So in spite of that, we are assessed under the same marriage criteria. So this extra hours we have, this extra or this less availability we have for work, it's not considered when the productivity criteria are applied to our careers. And then that generates like a very specific family and gender impact in our careers, which causes a cumulative effect. So at the end, and we have data showing that when you get to the same level as men in seniority, we get between 3 and 5 years older than men, because we just took longer. It's just harder path to pursue for us. And here I'm going to go very quickly to talk about like the age factor. So women younger than 30 show higher productivity rates than men who present steady record at this age. So we have like something called like the 30s seem to push women back in science. And then you try to understand why is that. And then when you're faced with the motherhood effect, right? So here is the countries are written in Portuguese, but here are the average age of like the title granting in PhD in like OECD countries and Brazil. So you have here, like most countries, I see everyone is like over 30, and some of them are very close to 40. We all know that female fertility experiences a significant decline after the age of 35. So that means that by the time we finish our PhD, we are facing like more difficulties to biologically have children. So that's why it's important for us to think about policies and the realities of women having children in academia during like graduate years and also during early career years, because we are finishing like in the age that we are probably ideally having children. Because when you think about like the postponing of maternity plans, we are thinking about like all the difficulties that could probably be avoided if our careers weren't threatened by the externalities and our choices were respected in a way, like for our families or ourselves as individual mothers, to decide when, who, and how many children to have. This is just like another fact to say that men with children, just to prove the impact is different, men with children have the highest probability of patenting in academia. And this is data from 2011, but there is a fact that like they are less likely, for instance, to get sacked or to lose like a position in a project. So they are more perceived as someone that needs stability, and is respected within the academic environment. So if anything, the impact could be even positive for men that have children. This is just to state a little bit of like our positionality with the event, is that this sentence of like having children while working or while studying was my choice, so it is my problem to solve. We want to break this by introducing and then like opening discussion to talk about reproductive justice and reproductive rights. So the issues of conciliating motherhood, parenthood in academia is a social problem to be mitigated with public policy and with social discussions. It's not an individual thing. It's not for a woman to decide. It's not for the family to hide the effects and start like absorbing whatever problems comes with. So an event like today is a great opportunity for us to open up the discussion, raise the demands, identify the difference between contexts, and learn how to co-create together potential solutions. In terms of solutions, it's just like some practical recommendations that I think they're probably like cross-cutting throughout the context we have. So we're talking about re-entry programs to assist mothers who decide to return after break periods, because sometimes they might be longer than maternity leave. On-site childcare, which changes completely the women's lives, especially the ones that live abroad without family support, extended family support. So it's important to understand that having childcare and having like this care for children is something that helps women's careers to flow in a more just way. The support for women who have children during undergraduate school, because this is where we have the highest evasion rates, because it's where you don't have funding or you have difficulties with like student loans. So it's important to understand that women may sometimes get pregnant during undergraduate courses. Also, this next one, the scholarships for substitutes. We're talking about early career researchers. So for the ones that may be working in STEM areas or they're working in labs, for instance, they might need like a postdoc or someone to actually keep on their research going during the leave periods. And obviously, at the end, the reduced workload, which can be maybe shared between colleagues, or can do like maybe relieving administrative work within university, in order to allow like new mothers to have a more flexible routine within the return, because we know we're not going to be the same as before having children. And then the end, I just leave here 2 articles that us in the Parent and Science movement published. So this is something that us as academics, we can do in terms of activism, which is like raising data, showing, raising awareness, showing that there are impacts happening, our realities are relevant and should be discussed within decision-making spaces. So these we're talking about like back then in the academic and the pandemic period, about the impact of COVID in academic mothers, and then the spilling out of the caregiver in the caregiver academics that still had to pick up with the routines and the impact after the pandemic years. So I'm going to stop the sharing my screen now, as we're going to handle the individual introductions. So let's start with, let me see here. Is that okay? We start with Oksana. So just to so just before Oksana starts. So now I would like you guys to just talk a little bit about how do you deal with being a parent in academia, probably very quickly the moment when you had children, like the moment in terms of like academic moment, and probably like if you can, like a struggle or a challenge that you faced either back then when you had a child or currently in the conciliating in parenthood. So Oksana, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Oksana, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the Nordic Institute of Theoretical Physics. I'm 4 years after my PhD, and I have 2 children, and I had both of them during my PhD years. So, and now they are 5 and 7 years old. About the biggest challenge, I think, looking back, for me, it was the balancing of the work-life balance. I think it was pretty hard and also very stressful. Yes, so looking back, I think the main complication was essentially the lack of information around me, because there is not enough role models in academia to talk to. There is extremely small amount of women in physics. And now it's getting improved, but still, and at the level of PhD, it's very rare to see a pregnant scientist around you. So I struggled a lot to get the information I needed, to get the information how to organize the maternity leave, how does it work, how can I go, how can I take part-time hours, and all of these practical things. I had to find it out by myself, bit by bit, and it was adding a lot of stress on top of the existing stress already. And but on the other hand, of course, like the positive things, it's extremely nice to have children. They add a lot of joy to their life. They're beautiful, they're curious. And I think the children, they are the best teachers for time management, for the managing the stress levels, and also in relation to academia, they teach us to look a little bit and to look and think a little bit out of the box, which is really relevant for scientific research.
That's brilliant. Very nice, Oksana. They do make us think out of the box. So now, Natalie, can you please talk a little bit about your experience as a mother in academia?
Yes, for sure. Hi everyone. So I'm a physicist by training. I'm a postdoc right now. I have 4 children. I had one, like Camila, right at the end of my master's degree. I literally handed in my thesis, and the next day I gave birth. The second one was born during my PhD, the third towards the end, and the fourth a couple of months before we started my postdoc. So we moved with 4 children and a newborn to a different country to start a new journey with the family. Challenges, since we're here in Lindau, this is organized by the Lindau meeting. So I'd like to quote something that Eric Betzig, one of the Nobel Prize winners, said during the Lindau meeting that we were at this year. He said, "Guilt rules my life." And I think, and that really resonated with me. He said, "Every time I'm working, I feel guilty that I'm not spending time with the family. And every time I'm with the family, I feel guilty that I'm not working. And if I'm thinking of anything else, like reading a book or hiking or something else, oh my, then I'm double guilty." So I think that's that's the challenge, especially for perfectionists, and we want everything to be excellent. We want to be the best parents and we want to be the best scientists. So it is something that kind of rules our lives as scientist parents, that guilt. But with that, I think if we know that, and if we push that guilt aside and we think of all the rewarding things that being a parent scientist can be, so we have a lot that we should be proud of. And I think that we actually, being a parent has not made me, you know, it's not despite being a parent, you're a good researcher. I think it's because you are a parent, you are a good researcher. I think there's a lot that we learn as a parent. Our mindset is different, our, you know, leadership skills, our, like Oksana said, the time management skills, all these things are things that we learn as a parent, and we really look at life and at the world very differently, being parents. So those are my 2 cents.
Very good, Natalie. I think guilt will be a very, very good topic for us to talk in a second. So now, Neha, please, could you please tell us a little bit of your experience?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am a postdoc here at Cornell University, and I'm mother of a beautiful daughter. She just turned 1 on the Valentine's Day. So she's a Valentine's Day baby. So the biggest challenge that I faced as a mother was number 1, being in US, the maternity leave. The maternity leave here is just 6 weeks, and I was away from my family, and then managing the baby and the work, like just after 6 weeks of delivering the baby, was a bit difficult. The other important part that I kept struggling myself was when to plan the baby. Like being a postdoc, I am at that stage of my career where I should be applying for, next phase, the faculty positions or the next step. But I'm also losing time as a biological female, or fertility rate wise. So I should also have or plan kids. So this constant fight between when to do what just cost me a bit of peace of my mind. So those were the 2 challenges that mainly affected me. And if I say a positive thing, my daughter taught me to take 1 single day at one time, like just 1 step at a time, 1 day at a time. So she really taught me that, which is helping me even with my research career. So just a few thoughts about that. Thank you.
That's really sweet, Neha. One day at a time, right? So Chilufya, please, could you share your experience with us?
Yeah, sure. So as you already introduced me, I'm originally from Zambia, and right now I'm doing my 2nd postdoc. I just started at DESY in Germany. So I have 2 kids, aged 2 and 9. So my 9-year-old I had just before, at the beginning of my PhD, and the second one was born during my postdoc. So so I have maybe a little bit of experience with being a PhD mother and then a postdoc mother. Very different, I would say, but maybe I won't talk about that now. But to talk about the challenges, I think I would share with what everyone has said so far. So the first being time management, like just managing the balance between my family needs and work, because if you have to be on top of things as an academic parent, you have to put in long working hours. I think this is just how it is. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm not waking up early to kind of read a paper. I'm waking up so I can prepare my kids and myself to go for work and to kindergarten and school. And then when I come back home, I want to have dinner with them. I want to prepare dinner, have dinner, and then put them back to sleep. But then afterwards, I cannot work because I'm too tired, right? So I have to maximize that time. I don't know, 6 to 8 hours when I'm at work, and it's not easy to put in extra even on the weekends, you want to be there. Now that I have a child in school, they have homework and things like that. So I have to monitor this. So it's still difficult, even if I do have such a supportive husband, but he's also working, so we have to manage this. So yeah, so I think that's the thing. And then I just want to point out one other thing, because you mentioned it in your presentation. There's always this guilt and maybe shame that I've never even mentioned before today for having chosen to have kids during my early career years. Nobody tells me that it's wrong, but there's just always at the back of my mind that you've done something wrong, just that sense of guilt. So yeah, that's it.
Very nice, Chilufya. The time management thing is a very important point. Like, how do we do with our hours and the externalities affecting our choices, right? Really good. Thank you very much. Now we're going to have the first father talking. So Benjamin, can you please share your experiences with us to be a father in academia?
Yeah, of course. So I had my son right at the end of my PhD, and my daughter, that was about 15 months ago during my postdoc. I'm still a postdoc in my 4th year. And the one obstacle that I just probably got behind me was moving with my family. So I moved from the US to Germany. Moving a family with children that are alive, that seems to be quite challenging because you need to get daycare and doctors and everything. That's all set up if you have a newborn or a new child. But if they are already a few years old, that's challenging. A challenge that I'm facing now, and that might be a slight add-on to your presentation, Camilla, is I would go as far as to say academia wasn't designed for families at all. Not for women, but also not for fathers that want to be involved in their families. And so that's indeed a challenge. And I'm seeing this now particularly for funding applications while you're going toward a permanent academic position, that this is a challenge because you measured all the time when your PhD ended, how productive were you? And depending on the funding application, you have to prove that you've actively taken time off. It's not a hobby being a father. It's you work on this every day, particularly if you want to be involved. So, but this is not considered. This is not a thing yet. And so that's what I'm facing. And so to end on a positive note, though, I think the great thing about children is that you get to experience life again through their eyes.
Yeah, it's really important, right? Like the hours dedicated to them doesn't count on your academic CV, right? It's not as productive, as considered as productive as our academic work. So now we're going to finish with Elizabeth. If you could please share your experience with us.
Hey, it's nice to be here. So I had my daughter during my PhD. That was 4 years ago. I still lived in Sweden. And since then I moved to Norway and I have a faculty position now. So we also moved with my child, but it was actually it went pretty well because we got a lot of support from the university here, and they have a kindergarten at the campus and so on. So that was pretty smooth. And I also can say that in Sweden, from the support system by the state and by the university, it was really good. And still it was extremely challenging, I think, even though sort of the setting was very supportive, because my husband and we graduated just 2 days from another, and that we already had to kind of push. So it was, our graduations were not on, our defenses weren't on the same day. And you have very hard deadlines when you have to submit the thesis. So those can't really be pushed. And, our daughter was also born during the pandemic. So when she started kindergarten, we were just sick all the time. And even though, you're kind of protected maybe by maternity leave, paternity leave, and so on, it's still very, very hard to make those deadlines because they are just kind of, external from those sort of settings. And you need to have your thesis ready to print. So it was many months where we would just kind of co-parent next to each other, just kind of handing over our daughter, work all the weekends, work all the evenings, just to make sure that we would make it before, we catch the next eye infection, and kindergarten would be, out of reach for 2 weeks. So I think this sort of, that you cannot count on your time is, I think, such a challenge. So, a deadline might be a month away, but you have no idea how many days you will actually have in that month. So that sort of instability is, I think, a very, very big challenge. But of course, it's super fun to have children, and I cannot agree more on the time management. I mean, I am so much more efficient than I was before when I had all this time to myself. And yeah, of course, wouldn't change it.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. This is a very important topic for us, is like academic couples. So when you have like two academics like looking after the same child, how is the conciliation happening? This is very important. So now we're going to move to the debate part. So we have a few topics outlined, but I think we can kind of like blend some of them together. So the first one was like career stages. So I'm just going to have a provocation here and see how you guys react. Like, what is the right moment to have a child in an academic career ladder? Is it during your PhD years, master years, undergraduate age, when you have like a professorship on your postdoc? So whoever wants to take the spot, like, when would you say like is the right moment, if there is such a one?
Maybe I can start with a very brief comment. So first of all, my answer would be there is no right moment to have children in academia, because it's very no ideal moment to have children, because it's very individual. So looking at my experience during the PhD, and it was super stressful for me, but looking back, I think maybe it was not so bad, because when I'm at the postdoc stage, my time is much more limited. The PhD was 4 years and it could be extended for 5 years. So I had pretty good flexibility during my PhD, but now the postdoc is for 2 years, so the time pressure is much stronger. There is much more stress in finalizing all of the projects up to the deadline, and there is not so much freedom also in the free time how to plan everything. So yeah, I think that actually PhD is quite good time to have kids.
Okay, so Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think it depends also so much, right, on the sort of the country and the setting, right? If you're fully employed as a PhD student, it's a completely different story than when you're on a scholarship and you can't actually take parental leave at all without extending the contract. I mean, that's then a completely different thing, and then it might be more convenient to have a permanent position. But at the same time, if you don't have that, then having a new faculty position, maybe, yeah, it's permanent and you're sort of safe employment-wise, but it's a lot of new challenges and a lot of new things that you need to do that kind of are also kind of crucial in this early stage of the career, right? To apply for funding and have more research output and so on.
And maybe the flexibility, like with the months, let's say, like because you have a fixed term contract, right? It's just very difficult to have the extension. So go on, Benjamin.
I would say postdoc might be the worst time, I think, because you don't have the support of a school while you're doing a PhD, and you don't have the permanent position and support of the school again for a faculty position. The postdoc is in between. It's a time when you're also supposed to find the next position and be somewhat productive. So I would say it's the least optimal time, and I've heard this also from others in that way.
Okay, Natalie, what would you say?
Exactly. I want to agree with everyone. I've had a child in every stage of my career, and I think that's totally true, that the best time is, it's just a matter of, the mathematical equation, right? In your PhD, you have a lot of time, so you could take a few months off. It's okay, that's fine. And you do have the support and the stability. You have a contract for a few years. It's very different than a postdoc where you renew your contract every, on a yearly basis, at least in most of the places in the world. You're on a fellowship usually, or something like, or really a contract, which is very limited in time. And you really need to be the most productive at a very short time period. So I think really the most challenging, it's not impossible, but it's the most challenging during the postdoc phase.
The postdoc is most challenging. So this is the word of authority. She had a child in every single stage of her career. So Rafael, if you want to say what, you raised your hand. You can speak now, please. I don't know if you raised the hand by accident or if you want to talk. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Go on then.
I would also say and agree with Benjamin and Natalie that, yeah, postdoc is not a good time to be having kids. But also it depends on like the country or the institution where you are. Like even if you were in your PhD years, if you are in a place where, you know, having kids is generally like frowned upon, particularly for women, then even PhD could be, you know, you won't be able to manage at all. If you're, for example, if your supervisor is not supportive, or in general, if the system there is not supportive. I personally did not feel this, but I know of some of my colleagues who were like regretting or were always tense to have chosen to have kids in PhD years. So also it depends on like the institution or place you are, even during PhD.
Okay, so thinking about like all the challenges you guys mentioned, what would you think, or would you say the policies that you could think of, like policies that could support those challenges or probably try to mitigate them in some level? What kind of like gaps also like they're not covering yet? Like you could say like probably policies that you had in your institution or policies that you would like to have in your institution. And let's just think beyond maternity and paternity leave. What would you think would be like helpful or you would like to have had or you had? Yeah, go on.
Yeah,
Chilufya?
maybe I can start. I'm just going to speak about the positives that I've experienced so far in my career. First of all, also to mention that I've been very lucky, I think, to have very supportive supervisors. I did my PhD in South Africa, and then my postdoc was based in Switzerland, even if it was my employer was in the United States. So when I had my child during my postdoc, I also had maternity for just 6 weeks. Well, it was 8 weeks because I had a C-section, but my supervisor was very, flexible. So I understand not many people get that, and I think that needs to be looked into. And then, so the positives, it's great that many institutes now have these flexible working hours, and you can have remote work. So as you are working, Camila, right now, and you have your kids in the background, so you could do that. That is just, I think, excellent. And then there are also flexible vacation periods where you're not obliged to take like a full block of vacation. You can take 2 days if needed. And then other things that I've experienced also is, for example, where I am right now at DESY, I was at another institute in Switzerland called CERN. Both places had daycares at the institute. So, and I was lucky in both cases to get a place there. And so here at DESY, I also get these, the employer puts in a 40% contribution towards the daycare fees if you need extra hours for the daycare. So that's just, I think, a great policy, which I am actually making use of. So that helps me a lot. And then also we have what they call a parents room. So just say, for example, maybe my child, for some reason, the daycare called and I had to pick him up early. And then but I need to finish something quickly. I could book one of these parents' rooms where they do have toys and books and things like that the child can be busy with while I finish up some work. So I think these have all been great. I could maybe list some more, but I let the other panelists speak as well.
No, Chilufya, you had like really, really good ideas because like the after school hours is our biggest challenge, like because we need to work more hours than the school hours that we have. And all this flexibility, it's amazing, isn't it? I think after pandemic, it's becoming more like acceptable to do like some more flexible location, as you said. Just a reminder, everyone, like if you could please just write your questions on the chat. Like we are very like in strict structure of the event, so we might not be able to let participants ask like in the camera or in the microphone, but we are really welcoming your questions over the chat. And then just Elizabeth, if you could wait us a minute, I would just like Mario, who has just joined us, to introduce himself, just say like what his experience has been with the second father we have here talking today, father in academia. So Mario, could you please just share with us your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, go on.
Great. And well, first of all, I apologize because I'm really late. I had to drop off my little girl at school. So, and the weather is really challenging right now. There's a lot of snow. Well, anyways, so my name is Mario. I am a postdoc here in Boulder, Colorado in the US. So I'm originally from Mexico. I have just a little girl. As I said, I am a postdoc, but I think the most challenging part on my career being parent, it was like in the PhD. So I had Victoria, which is my little girl, when I was just starting the PhD. But unfortunately, so that was also the beginning of the COVID. So it was really, really tough because, well, we had to, I and my wife, we had to finish the PhD in the middle of the pandemic. We are like experimentalists, both of us, we are experimentalists. So meaning that we had to work in the lab, but at that time the labs were closed, the childcare was closed, and it was really, really challenging. Right now, well, things are kind of settling down. For me, I think it's been kind of challenging being in the postdoc, but definitely it was harder in the PhD during the PhD. Yes.
PhD years are hard. Yes. Yes, I can relate, Mario.
Yeah.
Now, like, I was going to introduce like a next topic that we're going to kind of like bund together. So since we are all like in a different country of our origins, I would like to hear about you guys, about the decision to go mobile, to go to a different location, to study in a different country as a parent. And then I'm going to blend in with the second question, which is like workplace culture. So what would you say would be cultural aspects that are different than your own culture that you're facing in your home, in your institution right now, like your home institution? What would you think would be like probably different if you was in a home country, or probably better, or you are like leveraging from a different structure? So how do you see yourself as a foreign parent in academia? So anyone who would like to speak, just raise your hand. Go on, Benjamin.
Well, I think the obvious one is family support. Of course, that's missing.
Yes, definitely. Like we always would like some grandma, right? Like close by. So Elizabeth, like you had your hand raised before, and I didn't let you speak. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. Well, I can answer to this one first, but for me, it's since I had my daughter in Sweden, but now also in Norway, it's similar that it's much more normal, much more common that fathers take parental leave, that fathers are involved. It's not as conservative when it comes to these gender stereotypes at all, and that makes such a big difference. So also, you know, since a lot of the senior researchers, the senior faculty members are kind of male dominated, it does make a difference that they have also all kind of, you know, have gone through these issues. Anyone who had children, they had been on parental leave, they are, you know, home with their sick kids, and it makes a very, very big difference when you know that you're not the only one in that role. So that's definitely different, and I think I would have probably not even had children if I had stayed in Austria, to be honest. Also partly because this employment situation is very different, that very often you're just on a scholarship basis, and if that funding is over, it's over. And yeah, if you've had children during that period of time, kind of your problem. That was not the case in Sweden at all.
That's very good to hear. There's like the positive cultural difference. So Neha, what about you? What do you see different?
So definitely like the family support, that's one factor, and it is coupled to the availability of childcare. So the place where I am is like a small university-based town only. So there are not a lot of options for childcare. There are ones which are organized by university, but the wait times are like we are on wait list for almost 11 months or so. So not having the family support and then having a bit of difficulties in accessing to childcare, etc., was a tricky thing here being in US. The other part, if I compare to India, in India we do have a maternity leave of around 6 months, but here just 6 weeks, so that makes it a bit more difficult to balance work and the kids. So those are a few different things from India and being here in US.
It's interesting, right? Yeah, the maternity leave, like duration is crucial, right? Especially for lactation purposes and stuff. So Natalie, could you please? Yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to also, I agree, the support system, the childcare system. I also want to add the childcare system hours and costs. In the United States, it's very, 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 very expensive. So no matter how many fellowships you could have 10 fellowships, that does not cover, I mean, for a few kids, yeah, all your income goes just for childcare. Whereas, let's say, where I came from in Jerusalem, it was not like that at all. It was really subsidized by the country, and also from the age of 3 months, you have very, very good professional daycare from the age of your baby is 3 months, and you have a place. Here, it's not really like that. You need a nanny, and real daycare is only from the age of 2. So that's a very big challenge. And again, the cost. So something that we don't mention, but yeah, cost very challenging.
Yeah, that's the role of the state, right? In our social phenomena, like we need to understand if we're going to have government support or if like privately funded, because that makes absolutely like big difference in like how many children, and then you have to have a stable income to decide to have children and to be able to afford childcare. So Oksana, please.
Yes, I would like to add that in addition to the fact that we can actually take the leave, maternity leave or paternity leave, it depends on the country, and also duration of it depends on the country. But I would like to highlight that sometimes the fact that someone would like to take this leave is not well received, because academia is very competitive environment. There is a pressure for finalizing the projects. So it's not, the prolonged leaves are not very well received by some supervisors or at some institutions. So the game changer would be to normalize the taking the leave, to make it like something normal, that it is expected from the researcher actually to take the leave. But it's something strange that the researcher doesn't take it actually.
This is brilliant, Oksana, that you brought this up, because sometimes we just celebrate that we have the policies, but we don't think about the implementation of the policies and the stigma. Because are you going to really be 6 months away from your computer? Are you not going to answer any emails, join online events? Are you not going to even come to your lab for maybe just like participating in a meeting? So if you just say, well, I'm not going to do it, you are really not expected to enjoy the full flow of the leave you are entitled of. Like, so it is really important to talk about the implementation of those things and peer support, because you do have to have like this validation from the people that surround your academic community. So really good that you brought this up. So Elizabeth, would you like to add something? No, sorry, because you had your hand raised.
Yeah, no, that was before. I think we can.
Okay. So now we're going to move to questions and answers. So once again, we encourage you guys to send your questions over the chat, and Christoph is going to help me like selecting the ones for everyone to answer. So there's a first one from Sherwin Safavi. So he's saying that given the academia, there's a two-body problem. Is a major problem for even starting the parenthood, especially when both parents are academic, as like Elizabeth said, like the academic couples. What are you guys recommend to facilitate this issue? Like, I think it'll be important to think about the division of like caring between fathers and mothers when both are academics. So does anyone have any like specific recommendation or suggestions that you think would help mitigate this issue? Please, Elizabeth.
I mean, I don't have very good tips. I mean, we really try to share 50-50, and just kind of it's of course hard because we're both sort of in this position, but at the same time there's a lot of understanding. And I think if my partner would not also kind of live in this academic world, it might be much more of an issue that, as soon as our daughter is in bed, we go back to running some experiments, coding something, or also travel a lot for conferences, right? So I think altogether it's definitely a positive, but we also got very lucky. But that's one of the things that an institute can do, because when I applied for my position, they very early asked me of my family situation, and then very actively also helped to see if there is a position for my husband at the institute. So his CV was sent out, and we were very lucky because they actually were looking for a person sort of exactly with his profile. But I think we would have not, really found that opening if they hadn't sort of been very proactive in it.
Yeah, that's very, very difficult to actually have opportunities for both of them. I don't know if you're in the same areas, so it can be even more challenging. So a second question here is a very interesting one. It's about pregnancy and about contaminating labs or toxic substances that people do. So Anna is asking here, how did you manage to leave stress behind during pregnancy? And if you all continued working while pregnant? But I think she's probably referring to difficulties during pregnancy, and specifically being in the lab. It's not easy to be pregnant sometimes when you work with toxic substances. So does anyone have an experience of having to actually step away from work, from actually the physical work during pregnancy? Go on, Chilufya.
Yeah, I can so speak to the latter part, because I was working in an underground lab, so I could be there sometimes. And this could have residue radiation, and so pregnant women are not allowed. And so I had to give up my role, which in working towards growing this expertise in that underground lab. And so, yeah, that was difficult, but I knew that, I was doing, of course, the right thing. I could not be in there. So I just had to have a peace and say, okay, so I'm not going to be pregnant forever, right? So this will have to wait, and then I will go back to the lab at some point. So yeah, I did give that up, but I just had to be at peace with it. It did not stress me that much. It's just delay does not mean denial, right? So you eventually get there.
Yeah, there's an impact that I don't know. If you think could be mitigated with having someone doing part of your experiment for you or helping you out, like being in the lab while you can't. Do you think, because sometimes it suggests that, but we don't know people that specifically have this issue. So do you think, Chilufya, this is a solution that you would understand as a good one?
Oh yeah. So I guess maybe it varies from lab to lab, and I'm not sure how it is, but at least at the lab that I worked at, there are people who take off your load, and I did not stop completely. I could monitor the experiment using our software from above the ground, right? But yeah, there are people who took on the task and could go. If that answers the question, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, that's good to hear. Neha, yes?
Yeah, so the same thing, it was the benefit of me being a postdoc when I was pregnant. All the PhD students that I was surrounded with were always ready to help with all. So I work with MB, heavy equipments where you have to do a lot of maintenance, carry heavy weight, etc. But during that time, all the students or my lab was always supportive. So this was a bit of help. Being a postdoc, I could just, delegate those of my work and responsibilities to the students. I'm not sure if I was a PhD student, I was able to do that, to delegate it to someone else. But definitely there was always support, from the lab members. If you're pregnant, they help you with everything. So I was lucky in that sense.
That's really good. So that we have another question here is about the ones that moved with children, probably like a little older ones, not babies, because the question is from, let me see who asked this one, about Britta. So she's asking about like how did the children adapt to another language? So we can just even go beyond the language, but just think like, how do the children accept the fact that we are moving to another country? Gonna have a new school because mommy and dad need to work. So how was that for you guys? Chilufya, you can go first.
Okay, so I have a 9-year-old right now, and the last 4 year, well, since he started school, he started when I was doing my postdoc in Switzerland on the French speaking side, and we are originally from an English speaking country. So he was speaking English and then started school in French. So French is like his language of instruction. And then we had to now move to Germany for my second postdoc. So that was because he's in school, and that was difficult to navigate. He's created a community. I mean, for us too, not just for him, it was difficult to make him understand why we had to move, because this is the question that kids, they don't understand that, okay, your contract is done and you have to move on to a new place. Yeah, so that was really difficult to make him understand. But then of course we started maybe showing him some videos on YouTube of the place that we were coming to, and also some videos of some other kids who've had parents who had to move a lot, and then he began to feel acceptance. But also maybe it was easy because we've moved to Germany, not so far from Switzerland, and we promised him that we could every now and then try to go back to see his friends. So yeah, so maybe that helped. He told us though that he did not feel comfortable to start being instructed in German. So what we did was, and this also, I think it depends also on the funding that you have, and we had to make the choice to put him in an English speaking school, an international school, so that he could learn German at his own pace. And we'll see maybe in the next few months or a year if he's comfortable enough to go to an all German speaking school. Yeah, so there is always a way around it. It's not easy, but children are also, they say they are like sponges. They easily just learn new languages. So he's already doing great with German.
Yes, Natalie, please.
Yes, so to continue on that note, they are like sponges. I have to agree. I think that moving with older kids, I was worried at first, the language, different culture, different friends, all that. It did take maybe a couple of months to adjust. And let's say my older child, who was supposed to go into 3rd grade, we had to lower him a grade. So he was a few months in 2nd grade, which maybe hurt his ego a little bit. But other than that, it was excellent for him. He understood why we're doing this. So just he learns the language. We don't learn English in Jerusalem until the age of older than that. So it was a couple of months of adjusting, but after that, I mean, they're all very fluent in English, and they have great friends, and they're doing great, excellent. So I actually think it's a very big award that you're giving to your kids. You're giving them another language. Doesn't matter. Here it's English. Wherever you move, you're giving them another language. It's just a present for life. So I think it's a good thing. And they adjust, they learn people skills. Moving to a different country adds a lot to your personality, and I think it's just done good, only good.
Oh, yeah, no, it is a gift we're giving to them. It's just probably they're going to realize when they get older. Not now. Benjamin, if you could please share your thoughts.
Yeah, I guess not surprisingly for a 14-month-old girl, it was not an issue. But for my 3.5-year-old son, when we moved from the US here, we were for the first 3 months without daycare. And that, I think, was challenging for him, not having the exposure to other friends after having had them around him for so long. From a language point of view, I do speak Swiss German with him. It is distinct enough from German so that nobody understands us, but it is still close enough so that we can eventually transition. And so that's happening now after being a month there. So from a language point of view, I think there is development. But I'm also seeing at the daycare, those kids that have language barriers, that often at the age of 3.5 leads to maybe few more aggressions. But yeah, I think overall it kind of works, but there's certainly that age, they do know where they were at before, they remember their friends, but it works for them. If there's time, they'll get there.
Very good. Very hopeful that they'll get there eventually, right? Elizabeth, please.
Yeah, so we moved when our daughter was 3 as well. Language-wise, it barely counts because we moved from Sweden to Norway and they're so close. So that I think was not much of a challenge. But it's the kindergarten that's from the university, and so it's on campus. And on the one hand, that's kind of fun because all the kids there come from sort of these international research couples and students. So they all speak different languages. And it almost feels like every family speaks their own language, I think. It must seem to my daughter sometimes. But what was kind of essential is that this kindergarten from the university lets you have the child come in at any point in the year, while like in Norway you could only, on the state system, you could only enter kindergarten in August, and that would make it super hard. So it's a bit of a question to the other panelists that have moved with children that are already in school age. Like, did you time that to start with the semester, or did you move anytime during the year?
If I can answer this one only, like, so the school year in the academic year here in the UK starts in September. So I've been here last year. I came in 2023 in December. But so for me, it would be ideal to come in September. But I came in January because the school in Brazil ends in December. And I didn't want my children to lose or to miss out this like last 2 months in school, because I thought for them was very important. They have the celebrations and stuff. They're very young. But I thought like the academic year, it's something to be thought of. Like, it's more important for them than for us, I would say. Unless you're teaching, you probably need to be here like the start of classes. But for the children, like, they don't want to be the last one to join a group. So if they start with everyone else, they might be easily more absorbed into the group. So this is something to definitely think about. So I'm going to move to another question, which is a very good one. It's about bias. If you guys ever suffered any biases in selection processes, interviews, or recruitment processes, that they asked you, do you have children? Who looks after your children? Are you able to travel and stuff? So this is a question from Amal. She's asking, have you observed any differences in bias in promotion or recruitment, being a parent as such, especially mothers, because a maternity is being expected? This is even before being a mother, right? They sometimes ask you, are you planning on having children? So could you guys share like whatever biases you've observed with yourself or someone else that has told you? Natalie, please.
So I wanted to bring that up beforehand, that my mindset was always, I felt that guilt. Oh my God, I'm a parent. Oh, I have 4 children. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe this, maybe that. When I was applying for postdocs, let's say. And I remember that when I met my current postdoc advisor, the first thing he told me, and this really set the stage for a very, very positive experience later, was that, oh my God, when I read your CV, when I read your stuff, and I talked to your previous advisor, I said, wow, if she did all that despite having 4 children, so what can she do? I mean, yeah, if she wasn't a parent. So I think we should, again, going back to one of the points that I brought up in the beginning, it's not despite, I think it's because, and I think we should really, it's just in the mindset. We change the mindset and we realize that, yes, it's not even though we're parents, we're good. Yes, we can be good because we are parents. That makes a big difference. And I don't really think, maybe there are people that have bias, but I think that a lot of people are realizing that. And this is just one example, this postdoc advisor that I ended up with. So I did not experience any bias. I actually experienced the opposite. So that's, yes, regarding that.
That's good as a positive bias, I guess. Yeah, very good. So anyone else? Yeah, so no biases at all? No one was ever asked like about like childcare? Okay, go on, Neha.
I wouldn't say like a very direct bias, but I will say it, like you can just feel that it's in the back of like their minds that, oh, now you're a mother, maybe you are not that productive. So I have not felt anything like a direct thing or like removing me from some roles or something like that. But I can just feel that sometimes being in academia, like the just the outlook kind of changes when you are not a mother versus when you are a mother. Like definitely that small little thing I have felt around, but nothing like just direct.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? They just come the underlying like
Yeah,
climate,
like
parenthood.
subtle messages, but
Very good. So Benjamin, could you please? Yeah.
So I may not be able to speak about the bias, but I know of disadvantages that one can experience. I know of a case where through fatherhood, this person decided to step back a little bit, take the project a bit on the lower pace. That was not appreciated, and due to that, he lost first authorship, and that was an important publication, ended up being a Nature paper. So cases like this, of course, and I think that's a general, that can happen to mothers, fathers, and the same thing, of course, also whatever event is happening, say like past 5 p.m. is going to be challenging for any parent, involved parent. So of course, I would say like disadvantages in that sense, bias explicit, I have not witnessed or heard of.
Okay, so we are going to move to the very last section of our event, which is like, I would like you guys to give a piece of advice for the parents in academia listening to us, for the parents to be maybe, or for people who actually are just watching, interested in the topic. So as a parent in academia, what would be your advice for all of us? I'm going to do like this order that I'm seeing here on the cameras. So I'm going to start with Elizabeth, please.
Well, I think, of course, you can only like choose that so much, right? But to try to be in a group where you are with people who might also have had children, because I think that makes such a big difference when you work with people that also understand that I can relate and that will, you know, help you out when, yeah, you have to be home again with a sick child or so, and they take over your supervision meeting, for example, or help out with teaching these kind of duties. So try to have a network, especially when you don't have any family around, to really try to have a social net with people that understand that I can help you out when you need it and actually ask for help.
Yeah, that's good. That's very helpful, definitely. Chilufya, could you please just maybe give your piece of advice?
Okay, I agree with Elizabeth. Also, to just look for as much support as you need. You know, as you can get, find out you're going to need it. And I think it also helps to find a mentor who's maybe more senior than you, who's gone through this parenting journey. And I also just want to say, children grow very quickly. You know, so try to just be there. Don't I think learn your limits and don't overcommit, because sometimes we have this tendency to, like, your supervisor asks you something and just like, I've got to take it, even if you know that you do not have time in your hands. So yeah, I think don't do that. Yeah, that's what I have learned, and I think just take care of yourself.
Very good, because yeah, our welfare also matters, right? Very good. So Neha, can you be next, please?
I would just say to the people who are planning to have kids, as we also talked, there's no right time, I would say. So just like whatever you feel like, just go for it. And then it may seem overwhelming in the beginning, being a new mother myself. But as I mentioned earlier, just take one day at a time and you will be fine. Just slowly keep moving, keep going, and keep your mind like calm. One day at a time and you will be through.
Brilliant.
That's
Very,
mine.
very nice, Neha. Thank you very much. Natalie, can you be next? Give us
So,
a piece
yeah.
of advice. The mother of four.
I don't know if I have any advice actually. I'm just thinking right now but I agree with everything that's been said here. I really think a support system is very important, and really it's not just, helping out, but choosing the right people just in life. Just always surround yourself with good people, understanding people. And if you're a PhD student or a postdoc, you choose your mentor wisely. A family friendly person and kind, understanding person. I think that's very important in every stage in your life. And of course, afterwards, in faculty position, you want to go to a place where you see that they support family life. I think that's a very important thing. And yes, like Chilufya said, learn to say no. That's a very, very good advice for life. Also, yes, you have to prioritize, and there's only so much you can do. And yeah, just learn to say no sometimes. Sometimes we have to say no, unfortunately.
Brilliant. Yeah, should definitely learn. So, Oksana, could you please be next? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would like actually to second this advice of organize as much as support as you can, because especially right after having a baby, you would need it. If it could be a support from your partner, try to share the roles, share the parental leave, and get support from parents, grandparents, from your scientific community. Try to think about the daycare well in advance, because sometimes there are the queues. Also about, I would like to comment on this guilt feeling. So it's really bad to feel guilty at work. So it really helped me when I was focusing on work when I'm at work, and I could switch to the family when I'm with my family. So just don't overwhelm yourself with all the different thoughts. Just be focused and do whatever you need to do. And I think the most piece of advice, just don't stress out and enjoy being having your dual role as parents in academia.
Very good. Very, very good, Oksana. Thank you. Mario, can you be next with your piece of advice?
Sure thing. I think something which is really helpful and could save you like a lot of time. It would be like trying to find the most convenient commute in your daily work. Sometimes the school like in your neighborhood, it is not the best option for the commute. Sometimes you can find like a school nearby your place of work, and that would save you like, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes a day, but that make a really big difference. Another thought I would say, like challenging, it is really challenging doing research while you're a parent, but we always find out a way to work, right? To make the work done. But what it is really, really tough, it's like trying to be parent when you are doing research, because you sometimes wish you could have more time with your kids, and you cannot explain that to them, right? Because they are kids. And I think that's the toughest part. Just think about that.
Yeah, I can relate a lot, Mario, because I commute a lot here in Bath to pick up my kids to school. So I understand. And then I think the last one is Benjamin, right?
Possibly, yeah. So I think there are many different careers you can pursue. There's not just one, there's not just academia, but every child you only have once, and every child is only young once. So I think for me, that defines the priorities.
Very good to prioritize. So I'm just gonna summarize like a few topics we discussed in our conversation today. So at the beginning, you guys did mention like role models, and then like how important it is to have someone who is also a parent in your academic environment. So it's important to have someone more senior than you that understands, like Natalie was saying, that someone understood her as a mother as a quality rather than like something in detriment of her capacity. We talked a lot about guilt, which like I personally don't think we should really feel guilty for our choices. It's just our choices. There's no right one. And we are always going to be blamed by society for whatever choices we make. With maternity leave and progression, I think it's important, like that, especially Chilufya was saying, like how she sometimes was labeled because she had the issues during pregnancy, so she was impacted differently. So it's important to think about the progression, like overall, not just the specific moment or the year the child is born, but how our progression might be delayed. Overall, the routine and time management, like I was saying, like Mario talking about commuting, and Elizabeth saying about dividing with her academic husband. So the time management and also prioritizing is a very important thing. The children's age in a kind of like care they need, like when they're babies, when they are like 9 years old, so you need to explain. Just a second. And then, sorry. Oksana, can you take over for a second?
Right, yes. So we talked a lot, and I didn't take notes as Camila did. So unfortunately, it's really hard to summarize for me all the topics. But I think it was very fruitful discussion that we had. And yeah, thank you everyone who participated in this panel discussion. I hope it was useful for online participants and participants here in YouTube and on Zoom directly. And thanks a lot. I hope that we can continue the discussion in meetings that will be coming. And yeah, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Anyway, like I'm really sorry. Like my daughter wasn't sleeping; she woke up and was in the middle here. But anyway, like
yeah,
so
Camila, I just said that we thank everyone for participating in this discussion, and yeah, I think we could finalize the meeting now.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you everyone for participating, all the panelists, and everyone who's been watching us. I think that this event's going to be like saved on the YouTube channel, right, Oksana? So you can always access afterwards, or you can share with like whoever is interested in our discussion. And just please like keep on raising the points and then like making your reality visible, so we can collectively try to discuss more and mitigate the issues we have as parents in academia. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you, Camila, and everyone. Yes, the recording will be on YouTube. I'll upload it there, link it in on the Lindau Alumni network, and I think Camila might even give me her presentation to share there as well, so you can also refer back to that. So yeah, thank you from Lindau to everyone. Thanks for all the good points. Thank you for all the questions. I think we didn't even really get to all of them. And thank you to Camila's kid for keeping us on time.